Hey everybody, this is Peter Palmiotti of Human Art Studios, and this is Making Comics and Art, episode 165. And today we have with us Edgar Pasten.
Yeah, Edgar
Is that how
Pasten.
you
Yes.
pronounce it? Okay, cool. Who's here to talk about his book and his experience working in comics and all that. And yeah, just before we started, you had a question for me.
Yeah. So I was mentioning that I've watched a couple of the shows that you've done in the past. I just wanted to like get a feel for your show, but I wanted to know what your story is about. I know you have like you're inking your comic as we talk, and I
Right.
figured may as well ask.
Yeah. Uh, my character is retro, and it's like I don't want to give away the story, but like what I'll say about the character and whatnot is, it's very inspired by comics I read growing up from the 60s to the 90s. Retro himself is a metahuman. Um, and some people call him the first. And we'll see what that's about as we get more and more into his story. But he is stronger than the average person, faster than the average person, heals quicker. He is the protector of the five boroughs, if you know, in New York. And he is a master of parkour.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a lot to his story, but this is like, it's an introduction. You'll get to meet like his day job and, see him at his day job and meet his girlfriend. But also when he's dressed as retro, he has a connection, which we'll meet. Just enough to get people started in his universe kind of thing. It's not an origin issue, but I'll be getting to that eventually.
Nice.
And we'll learn more as each issue progresses and gets deeper and deeper into the story. It's like I really want to just set up the character and do a lot of sort of almost one shots. There'll be threads that will be building, but I want to introduce a lot of villains and just have fun adventures.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the toughest part is narrowing down what you can do, Do I have love for Super Sentai? Yes. Is it Itchy Five? Ichthai 5.
Ichthus is how he pronounces. Yeah.
So yes, very much. Part of my professional career, outside of my personal love for, for comics and the comic that I'm doing, which is Ameri-Kaiju. I used to work for Saban Brands, and in that respect, I was working on the most American version of the Sentai as you can get, obviously, right? So I worked on that show, and in my time there, I definitely grew a lot more of a fondness for everything Sentai, especially the monsters. The monsters were by far my favorites. I as far as the Rangers and the good guys all together, like they were cool, but there was just something about the monsters specifically that I was drawn to, and even as a kid, that was the one thing that that I was drawn to early on. For me, like reading comics for me was not really, I wasn't all that smart of a kid, so I wasn't reading all that much. So when I would pick up a comic, I would pick it up, and my version of reading it was just to read the images, right? And I would gravitate towards the coolest panel, and then I would redraw that panel and like copy it over and over. And for me, that was the same way. The monsters in these stories caught my eye the same way that those cool panels did, and I was redrawing those monsters over and over, and that definitely fed a lot of what I do now in my comic. This is my little man. Say hi, bud. Yeah, we're gonna play your music. So yeah, great question. I definitely have a love for all things Sentai, and here, go back with you. And especially that genre that brings these these big fights and just kind of larger than life things. Like the mechs are also a very cool part of it, but at least for my story, I tend to be more of a purist. I want to focus on the monsters, just because there's so much cool stuff there,
Yeah. What were you doing on the show? Like,
so
animation
my responsibility while I was there, I was more product development. So my job was I helped bring the new comic book, the one by Boom.
Right.
Part of my job there was to make sure I was part of the story team, and in that role was basically to help delineate point A and make sure that point Z or whatever, A to B or A to Z, that along the way we hit certain points. One, that we didn't deviate from the main characters like arc or their canon personalities and that kind of thing. So it was more like the way that I describe it really is like style guide police, being maintaining people to stay on brand. So a lot of my job was also making sure that the suits were drawn correctly, that the right Pantone colors were used specifically. Often artists we get a little lazy, of course, and those backgrounds get a little shaky, and part of my job was to like push them a little bit more. And I was lucky because I had very, very talented artists working on the interiors, on the covers, posters, everything. So in that sense, it wasn't as much heavy lifting, but it was really more my focus was basically just maintaining the brand.
That's very cool, man. That's and we have Telepathic Bunny Comics in chat.
Nice.
He goes, cute kid.
Thank you.
And let's see, big monster stepping on stuff. It's a simple form, but it works.
Yeah, for sure.
They're just talking to each other in the chat, which is cool.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, kind of everything has a formula, right? And for me, I think the formula, like Telepathic Bunny Comics just mentioned, is big monsters. That's the biggest key, to what I do, right? I like to show off the monsters, but there also has to be some sort of like main narrative that I'm trying to follow. So that's where the story is right now. Is issues 1 through 3 have set up why and how the monsters are there, and added a little bit of mystery, hopefully at the end of 3. And I know it won't give too much away by giving the elevator pitch, but it's basically Ameri-Kaiju is a comic about monsters specifically, but in this case it's American mythical monsters. So it's everything that we know here domestically, like the chupacabras or the Jersey Devil, for those on the East Coast. There's Momo. There's monsters that are native, in other words, to the Americas, and those are the monsters that we're featuring in this comic, that this 5-year-old monster hunter is dealing with. And here's my little man. Say hi. I just have a question. But I'm in the middle of a show. Please wait. Okay. That's my other little man. and he's my inspiration for the comic. He's not only for the stories and the type of stories, but also for the main character. He actually is the voice on some of the videos that we've done for the Kickstarter in the past, and also because we're doing the new Kickstarter coming up. That's where his role has come in. He does a lot of my proofreading as well, so it helps to have the core audience ready for it.
Yeah, most definitely. Do you have a specific date set up yet, or it's just coming?
So
up?
it's been floating, and we're looking at January 3rd, which is I believe is a Monday, as a start date, and I haven't locked that one in yet because I was very nervous for my first Kickstarter, where I started the Kickstarter and it wasn't until like 2.5 weeks in that I got on my first podcast. And being that it was so far in, I was only about maybe 7 or 8% funded at the time.
Right.
And of course, it helps to have new eyes on stuff, but I made the mistake of starting. Buddy, you have to wait for me, okay? Have brother help you. Go say, brother, can you help me? Go on, buddy. So because my first one was a little bit shaky that way, where I started and then it wasn't until 2.5 weeks later that I did any actual marketing. I think it's a little bit of hubris, right? I was like, well, if I make something cool, people are going to naturally flock to it, and whether or not it's cool has nothing to do with how people hear about it and how people come about finding you. So this time around, my plan was to be on 3, 4, 5 podcasts to like really spread out the idea and really get something going before I started, because it really came down to the wire last time, where I was working on this and it didn't actually get funded until like maybe 3 days beforehand, and
Right.
that obviously made me very nervous, and there was a lot of nerve-wracking moments, waiting for this thing to get funded and all that. So this time I'm putting in a little bit more work up front in terms of marketing and getting on shows. So thank you again for having me on.
Sure.
and allowing me to talk about this comic that I'm so passionate about. But that's the plan right now.
Yeah. My pleasure. I mean, like, if I hear anything as far as crowdfunding, is that January, like right after December and January, aren't the best.
Yeah.
I have seen like really successful ones that started on the 15th of January. So you might consider pushing it back a little. I mean,
right. I mean, there's
it's all your schedule, like
that like tax time crunch too, right?
Yeah. It's like yeah. I mean,
right. It's been a while, because like I have the Kickstarter pretty much ready to go, which I can share with folks here as well. But the Kickstarter itself is pretty much ready. What I've mostly been waiting on again is like a little bit more of that groundwork, to be like laying the groundwork for the comic, and to really get more eyes on the on the comic itself, and then kind of do a rollout that way. But I mean, it started out where I was like, oh yeah, October, I'll of course it's like October 3rd, and I was like, yeah, we're ready. There's only one video that we're waiting on, and now it's like it's November, and there've been a lot of things that I've had come up where I'm like, okay, I'll put it off for another week, another 2 weeks, and now I'm like, well, I may as well wait till after the holidays to do it,
right,
where I'll have more time to like to play that up. But you're right. I mean, being so soon after the new year might be a little bit too much of of a crunch there. What I've also played with is like the time, right? So instead of 30 days to extending it to like 40, 45 days. But I haven't made that final decision yet either. So
Right. Well, one thing that everybody recommends, is an email list. So like to really set up a thing and get people on it, and that's one way where you can just email everybody updates on the project, like the Kickstarter is coming up for the 3rd issue and all that jazz, get them excited, show them previews, show them prints or whatever you get going on. But yeah, it's like timing is everything, and getting the word out is everything. Frankly, like, people that do Kickstarters have like 30 days mapped out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Where like something happens every day, like whether it's a new post, a new stretch goal, something, and they're constantly plugging it through podcasts and shows like myself and all that.
Right.
So it's all according to what your schedule is. Having your own family definitely affects
as you can see from
your time. Yes.
From my little guys here, there's a lot of that, which I love, because it definitely helps to break up the day and helps to just kind of it makes my day awesome. So I can't complain about the interruptions all that much.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I work from home, so that also that happens throughout the day, where they'll come in and it's kind of a nice icebreaker, monotony breaking moment, because there's never a dull moment with these guys. They'll break in. They're like, I don't care if you're on screen, Dad. I want to come in and do this. My stuff comes first. So.
Yeah, there's plenty of creators, and there's even people that do their own shows, and they have kids, and kids come in and become part of the show. It's fine. Just to go over a few comments here. Let's see. So this is where you're focused with the monsters or the people. Yeah.
So the focus really has been on the monsters, and I started out, to answer your question there. Basically, I started down a road where I really wanted to give them, to give the viewer reader some emotional connection with the monsters. The monsters are at this point, they're we've shown that they care for each other to some degree, right? Because like it's kind of like a Navy SEAL thing, where like one of them gets beat up and they all come back for the one that gets beat up, and there's that kind of dynamic that I was building with them, and we are going to continue down that road. But now now that I've set up, like, these are monsters, but they still have some sort of, it's weird to say humanity, but they do have some sort of, like, they feel for each other. They might not be doing the right thing, but there's that sense of camaraderie, at least between monsters and stuff. And the next thing that I'm going to do is focus a little bit more on how they're affecting the little town, because it is a little town that they've focused on, and why are they in that little town, and they're going to start growing even more, and it's actually there's a good reason for them to grow. It's not just like when I started out writing, I was like, yeah, they should grow. And my wife stopped me and she's like, well, why are they growing? I was like, well, because I want them to be big. And she's like, but that doesn't serve your story, right? So I came up with a really cool device that will help move the story forward and help me get my way, where it's like, now you have these giant monsters that are, like the old Godzilla movies, right? Where they're 40, 50 feet tall and they're battling each other in the middle of the city.
Right.
And in telling that bit of the story where I wanted the fights to go, in telling that part of the story, inevitably I'm going to have to focus a little bit more on how it's affecting the people of that little town, and and especially how the main character deals with those feelings that they're having, how it affects what he's doing, in other words.
Right.
So yeah,
That's
great
cool,
question.
man. I definitely grew up with King Kong and Godzilla and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Watch it on the weekends on TV and stuff. So Ichthus goes, "This is super cool, dude. With that background of you and Boom Studios really did a phenomenal job keeping canon with the brand to the characters in the world." Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big job.
It's cooler, but like the idea of folklore monsters having them canonical
Yeah.
to kaiju.
Yeah, and that's really the idea, to like it's a much longer story, but the short version of the story, my buddy John and myself and one other friend had gone to a convention for the first time, and during these conventions we're trying all kinds of like different things, to get people to come by and like pay attention to our booth, because the first day we set up, basically people ran past our booth to go to the big artists that were there, that were very much established, and they basically trampled over us and went and bought their $200-$300 pieces, and then kind of trickled back, and we're like, oh, okay, cool, that's nice, but we're going to keep walking. So we were trying to come up with gimmicks as to like, how do we get people to stop and look and ask us questions even. So one thing that we did was we started sculpting live. I had my very first vinyl toy at the time, and we started sculpting on top of them and making our own monsters. And my buddy John was making this really cool crab monster, and he just found objects and clay. And as he's sculpting it, and as I'm sculpting, I think it was a Cthulhu or something that I was sculpting. We're talking and trying to. We gathered like 2 or 3 people at the time. As they're there, I'm sculpting and talking, so I was on and off. And in the middle of that, we start getting more people, and then this small group of guys comes over, and one of them's like, "Americans can't make kaiju," and then walks away. And I was livid, man. I was like, where do you get, like I wanted to go up and shake this guy. So my buddy John stops me, and he's like, dude, just let it go. They've walked away, whatever, So we finished our day, and it was great because, again, we kept sculpting, and that was the number one gimmick, right? Live sculpting was just like the best thing that we could have done. And then, of course, me being me, I was still seething a couple days later about this comment. So I was like, I'm going to start drawing all kinds of monsters, and I was drawing monster and over and over and over, just monsters, and posting them to my social media account, and then I was like, what, American monsters? How can I stick it to this guy even further? And I ended up coming up with the name first. And Ameri-Kaiju as a name was more of like my own version of a slur, like kind of thumbing it to this guy and saying, well, too bad, we can, and we did, and we are,
right,
because we already have these very well established monsters. I see his comment here: the giant Jersey Devil and Squatch Throwdown. Yes, it's basically that, right? Like, we have our own monsters, and yes, I can showcase. I'll show some of those in a bit.
cool.
That was my response, right? Like, yes, we can make them. Here they are. There's already a well-established lore behind a lot of these characters, and I'm going to take advantage of that and do my own thing. And then the story kind of fell into place down the road. But that was the beginning, the very beginning, and that was 2009. So I've been at this for quite a while, just kind of letting it simmer. And during the pandemic, of course, I got a little bit of extra time that I didn't have before, and I focused on it, and finally able to get a comic book out with some of these stories that I came up with, and the characters. So all the character design is by me, and then I have a really awesome team for the interiors. I have 2 artists right now. Jezreel did issues 1 and 2, and I have that's Jezreel Rojales that did the interiors, and I have Danielle Caval, who is also another interiors artist, doing a different style of drawing altogether for issues 3 and 4, possibly even 5. We're still working on layouts and stuff for 5, but all of that came together really nicely, and it's actually been a really cool experience working with other artists and not just like trying to handle the whole thing myself.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is. I mean, I'm looking at how much time you're spending on all of those lines back there, man, and it's a labor of love.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I mean, like you were talking about your day job, and that experience must really help you in putting together a solid book with designs and even history to each character, and
Right.
like really flesh it out.
Yeah, it definitely gives me a different perspective, because I've been on, I've been in meetings where we're talking about, for instance, like Power Rangers, the TV show, and how that is dealt with. And then I've been obviously in conversations for things like the comic book, and even in conversations for when we did the movie. And all of those conversations were slightly different, but they all carried throughout a sense of formulaic is a little too generic of a term, but there's that
Right.
familiarity. You know when things are coming up, and it's because they're set up so well. The writing is really, really well done in those 3 genres, and there's a reason why you feel different watching a movie. You have a different mindset when you sit down and watch a movie, and it's not just about the quality of the cameras or any of that. It's the way that the story is laid out for you. Obviously there's more time in a movie to flesh out a character, but there's certain things that you get to do in TV that you don't get to do in a movie, right? There's definitely things that you can do. There's ups and downs to everything, of course, but it definitely helped me, the experience that I have in product development in general, because I've been doing this for a little over 2 decades, believe it or not. It's been a fun ride, but I started out as a grunt, right? I mean, obviously, designing and like internships at Mattel. Those are experiences where it's really eye-opening, because you're seeing, Barbie is not done by one person, right? You would think, like, growing up, I was like, oh, there's a designer for just Barbies, but I mean, my goodness, that place is amazing, right? There's people that are designing the eyeballs. There are people that are designing, the summer clothes, and then another group for everything else. So, learning early on in my career that you have to kind of spread out the work a little bit, and also how and when to bring characters in, that kind of thing. We do it all the time for toy stuff. That's where I've spent most of my career is designing toys. When to release and how to release and all that good stuff. What I've never been able to get, though, is the marketing side of things, obviously. But design-wise, I'm good.
I mean, with comics nowadays, I mean, if you want to sell more than, you know, just to your friends and family. You got to put the word out, and there's all sorts of ways of getting out there. And you know,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
some people luck out and like, you know, like, I don't know, maybe it's a certain cover design that they really latch on to, or they, you know, maybe it's just word of mouth. They heard from other friends that, hey, check out
Right.
this book. You know, it's like, but regardless, you know, you still got to put in your time and put in your effort and do as much as you can, because you never know. Like doing, you know, I did it for my book. I did a 5-day Kickstarter back in 2019 for initial funding, and I
Oh,
know
wow.
that was quick, but I worked my ass off 5 days in a row. You know, it's like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and I got, like, you know, just over 80 backers, and you know, just
Wow.
under 2,000 in funds.
That's
So
great.
when I go, yeah, I consider it a success. It's like, because you don't know until you hit the button and do it, like what's going to
Yeah.
happen. Because you can have all these people, you know, hundreds of people liking your artwork and posts and whatnot, but that doesn't guarantee sales. You know, it almost
Yeah.
never does.
It has to translate to sales eventually, and
Yeah.
that's exactly where I'm at. Where, you know, I'm ready to push the button now, right? I can do it at any point, but have I been out there enough? And for me, at least, the answer is no, because, you know, I know my numbers, and I know what you know, the amount of time that I've spent um, on my freelance work that I do, and you know, it's my typical workday. Um, you know, my wife hates it, but I'm typically working a minimum of like 16 hours a day. Most days it's like close to 18,
Yeah.
because I'm working professionally maybe 12 to 14, and then I'm doing, you know, my stuff at odd hours of the night. And lately, I know for like the last 2 months at least, it's been a little bit heavier with my freelance stuff. You know, especially coming up to the holidays. My biggest concern was, you know, if any of these clients fall through and I don't have that money over the holidays, you know, it's you starve. You know, so
Yeah. It's
I've been putting in extra hours in order to cover some of that time off, because I do plan on, you know, I'm more family first than anything else, and I do want to take some time off to spend with my boys and with my wife, and if I do that, then I'm not making money, right? So I need to, you know, I need to balance those things out, and that's where I know I actually I have this app for posting. It's called Preview, and I
okay.
love it because I can do, you know, maybe 20, 30 days out worth of posts at a time, and it posts it on its own. I can set a schedule for it, and you know, write the little you know, the whatever the hashtags and all of that good stuff is. But I
Right.
had about a month and a half worth of things in, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll work on my professional stuff now. You know, I'm free to do that. And of course, that was like 3 months ago, and it just hit me the other day. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't posted. And, you know, not little, that's a big thing, right? Because not posting means that you're not up to date. People think like, oh well, this guy's done or gone, right? So you know, things like that. I definitely need more attention focused on things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just watching a video of a YouTuber who has like over 1 million subscribers, and he was going, you know, him and his wife would try to have a baby, and he was like, at one point, you know, I could have gone a month and not posted at all. You know, he posted a few videos, so he wasn't like totally inactive, but he's like, I
Right.
can't, you know, even with all these subscribers, I can't take that much of a break. I can't disappear. Um, and it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, you know, and you know, it's like I put a couple of different links below for people to check out you and your work. Instagram is one of them. And got your website and maybe your Facebook in there. You know,
it's all at Ameri-Kaiju Comic, whether it's Twitter or TikTok and Instagram. Even the website is amerikaijucomics.com, so it's fairly easy to find.
Yeah. But I would say, like, you know, a weird thing happened recently. Like I check out stuff probably mostly on Instagram. Like, you know, I'm interested in seeing art, and it's the easiest place to see art over there.
Right.
And I noticed, like, I commented on some people's posts, and I would get a response, but I would get a response in my direct messages. And I'm like, what's up with
it's in their story.
No. It was like, it was posted on their wall, and the response was in the direct message. And I found out the reason for that is that they were using a program, and the program settings were set to direct mail as opposed to on their wall, you know, whatever you call it. But and I was like, that's really weird. Why would you want to do that? You know, it's like you want to see that you're responding to people, that you're interactive, that you're, you know,
Right.
it's almost useless that you're, you know, responding and it goes directly to them and nobody else sees it. But
yeah, and you know, that's the other thing, that there are so many little tricks that are being done by a lot of different people. Because I mean, I've heard from one friend that has a really good following, like, oh, you just post regularly and you're good. And I've seen other people where, like, they'll post once a week, and then they'll go like 2 weeks, and then another post, you know, and they still have a ton of followers and a ton of engagement. And granted, you know, a lot of that has to do with the type of you know, posts that they're putting up and all of that, the quality. But
right.
There are also little tricks, right? I know, like, sharing on Facebook is a whole that's like a whole algorithm thing that has to happen. But I was also under the impression that when you answer a question on your social media, that you should follow it up with another question to, like, keep the conversation going, because the number of responses, replies on there help weight your, you know, your posts and make it more popular, right? So it's more shareable.
Right.
So I mean, on that end, maybe they're doing some trick that we just don't know, right?
I
never
don't know.
Like, this whole, like, you know, keep asking more questions or open-ended question kind of thing. I mean, it seems sort of obvious to me now that, you know, now that I've tried it, you know, if somebody's like, oh, this is great, you know, they're instead of just like, thank you, right? My buddy was like, no, you have to say, like, you know, thanks, I checked out your page and you have some great stuff, you know, and then they'll reply with a thank you, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, but then there's some sort of exchange going.
Right.
That I mean, that's like as much as I know, and that's like not even tip of the iceberg. You know, I'm so bad with social these days.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like it's tough because it's all that extra work. I mean, you know, usually, you know, my responses are probably boring and don't really start conversations, I know, but I feel like I'm at least interacting with them. I'm responding, and
Right.
I see 9 times out of 10, like, I'm guessing, like, they don't even see my reply to their message. Like,
Yeah.
so
that's how I feel.
I'm like, even if I did spend a half hour on my response to them, they wouldn't have saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I also feel like that's also sort of, you know, a little bit of like our personality coming through too, right? Like, because I don't want to be, the last thing I want to do is be fake on social media and be, you know, like the, oh, happy go lucky, everything is great, and, you know, everything I do, right? there are times when I'm like, I don't like this drawing, or whatever. I'm not going to post it. If I don't like it, I'm not going to like post it and throw stuff up there. So I feel like, well, if I'm commenting on something, it better be because I want to comment and not just like, playing lip service, because that's what I've been told to do in the past too, is like go on a million pages and comment on everybody, and then they'll comment on yours, and there's this whole algorithm thing, and man, I want to draw, I want to create.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there and type all day,
Yeah.
Well, I do for my day job, but that's that pays me.
Right.
But it, in a sense, it's kind of like my personality coming through there too, because if you hear from me, it's not because I'm hoping that to fool the algorithm into like upping my post or something,
Yeah. No, I mean, like anybody who takes the time to comment, I feel like deserves some sort of response. That's just like, if somebody walked up to me and said something, I would just walk away,
Right. It wouldn't just kind of like blank stare and okay, well, this is life. Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly there. I mean, there should always be a response. And I think I'm pretty good about responding. I mean, it's not like I'm getting, more than I think my best one has gotten like maybe 8 or 10 comments. And you reply, and it's fine in that respect. But
I did hear one thing, and this may affect how you post to Instagram specifically, because I looked at your stuff really quick, and this is what somebody said to me recently. They said, when you do hashtags, try to do different hashtags every time you post. I mean, you could break it up. Maybe every third post you use the same or similar hashtags, but like you try to seek out other things that mean the same thing or along the same lines that, like if there's a dog in your picture, and even if the focus is not the dog, but like you could put a dog hashtag in there.
Yeah, you're almost describing what's in there, right?
Yeah. So so like I've become aware of that, and I try not to repeat myself. At least like whatever I posted last time, I try not to use the same hashtags. So I mean, I thought that was a good tip. It's like I wasn't aware that because you have the spammers that are pretty much like they'll do 40 posts and they'll be all the same hashtag, and they're just trying to get on some leaderboard or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's crazy because all of these suggestions that I get and all, it seems like obviously after you hear it, it feels like something that is like, well, duh, yeah, of course that's right? It's not until you hear it and maybe sometimes even say it yourself that you're like, I get it. That's why that happens, right?
Yeah. But, totally. But,
well, actually, can I share my screen real quick to show the Kickstarter?
Absolutely.
Let's see, share screen.
Take care, T-Bunny. Heading out to work.
Let's see, I'll share this screen. Actually. I don't know why that's even up. I'll share this screen and then I'll shift you over. So this is my Kickstarter page. And I have things set up. I have a couple of videos, and I have a couple of GIFs showing some of the previous covers and some of the new covers coming up. Some fun stuff that I'm actually working on. You see the Ameri-Kaiju kids with the it's kind of like a garbage pail kids homage. that come up
Right.
now. Those are some of the more
Yeah.
fun ones that I came up with over the break between the two Kickstarters. And a lot of what I do obviously is because, you know, it's what I like and what I want to see out there. And
Yeah.
when I was looking at, and I say this in a video too, but you know, basically when I was looking at all of these amazing covers that were done for the first Kickstarter, I have a lot of friends, and luckily they were able to do a lot of these variant covers for me. I basically was like, well, damn, I want to do one too, you know, and I ended up doing a cover, but I was like, well, you know, I mean, the artwork is one thing, that's cool, but I want to do something a little bit more, you know, like more in the vein of product which is what I focus on. So I ended up creating some an homage, as you can see at the bottom here, at the Booyah level. I
Right.
have little, it's like my version of Little People, and I named them Ameri-Kaiju Kids. And it's basically, you have a 3-inch, I believe they're about 3-inch tall figures, same size as what you would see with Fisher Price's Little People. And I'm producing these guys for the next wave of Ameri-Kaiju for issues 4 through 6. And I not only have the hero, but I have a couple of the monsters, which is the Beast of Busco, who's featured pretty heavily in issues 1 through 3. And then I also have a trio with the Chupacabras, which is also heavily featured in those first 3 issues. And then I still have this guy, which was he was actually done for the first Kickstarter. This is the main bad guy as a giant monster. And his name is Tagarik, and he is like the ultimate big bad. He's actually the one leading the charge and sort of bullying these other monsters into the actions that they take in issues 1 through 3. So that's actually one of the biggest things that I've been working on, which is like you see here in this splat level, where you get every figure and pretty much all of the books and that kind of thing. So,
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's
let me ask you
kind of a quick look. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Like you said, the kaijus are like, you know, they're there for each other. They'll like, if one of them gets wounded, they'll take them to safety, whatever. How do they communicate?
So right now, it's funny, but right now they're just like roars and grunts and stuff like that, and they understand each other. So it's kind of like, you know, how do dogs communicate? They just kind of do, you know, between each other. But there is an actual language that's going to be fleshed out a little bit more. But it's basically they're just kind of grunting to each other, and then the one that sort of translates for us is Tagarik, who's the main villain, and he's kind of been the source of like I equate it to like those cheesy Saturday morning cartoon style, right, where it's like rah 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 rah, and he's like, what do you mean, you know, like what's Lassie, right, where it's like, what do you mean he fell down a well, and it's kind of, we have those moments where he's like translating what they say, in other words. So that's how you'll see it on the comic. And then eventually I do plan on having them communicate in a more intelligible way for the reader to sort of carry and understand a conversation.
Right. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was just curious. It was like dawning on me.
yeah. There's some cool moments where the hero, who I don't think I even finished with my story earlier because of my son, but basically you have this hero that is 5 years old, and he comes in and I don't think I have any images of him here, but I do have a video that might shed a little bit more light. But he's 5 years old, and is imbued with these powers to become Hero, which is our main hero, and in doing that, and getting those powers, he's now, he's still 5 years old mentally, but he has the body of this adult, and he's kind of working through what that means, and these powers. But he's not only having to
Right.
like battle these monsters at night, he's also still having to deal with, I still have homework, I still have whatever that means, right? For a 5-year-old, there's not really like heavy homework, but one of the things I touch on is, as a kid, if I got homework, I thought it was the end of the world, right? I thought it was like, if I don't finish this, I'm done for the rest of my life. Like this is some big stuff, and it could have been like, cut out some letters from a magazine, right? But for me, that was like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? Where do I start, and how do I start?
Right.
And, and you start the snowball effect as a kid. And a lot of that is thrown into this character where, he's going to overreact about some things and be kind of lackadaisical about others, as much as, as much as I was as a kid, right? A lot of this is being, a lot of my experiences are being pulled from, pulling from my experiences to write for the character. And there's a moment where, the teacher gives this assignment, and it's basically write your name, but use things that you find outside, right? Use nature to write your name. And he's like, yeah, I'll get to that. I know how to write my name. I've been writing my name for a while. It's okay. And he breaks away from that to, practice being a monster hunter. And the bell rings, and he's like, oh man, like you could see the color leave from his face, and he's like, now I'm done for. And he scrounges to get this done, but it's garbage, right? And it's it's little moments like that I'm trying to build into for you to see that, and really understand this is a 5-year-old. This is not an adult, right? He's still a 5-year-old in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna overestimate my abilities and have fun first, because that's what I used to do as a kid, right? It's like, it's fun first, and then you'll do your work if there's time left over. Which,
Right.
Totally the wrong lesson to teach my son. But I think through this, seeing Ike as a character who is the name of the 5-year-old, seeing Ike make these mistakes, I'm hoping that he sees the lesson that I was trying to teach him when he got into trouble for this, right? Because I think sometimes when we tell our children as parents, I don't know if you have kids, but for me, when I teach my son, I try and teach him through stories. Because when I say, hey, you're doing that wrong, or yell like, hey, stop doing that, it's more of a shock than anything else to the child. And there's less of a lesson, right? They're not going to learn why you don't do that or how you're supposed to do it. So for me, it's been like, okay, yeah, I'll say, hey, stop doing that, to shock him and like stop him from doing what he's doing. But there has to be a follow-up to that from me, right? And in this case, what I've done is write these stories as a response, and to kind of help reinforce some of those lessons, right? You're seeing this character do these things wrong the way that you did, and now look at the consequences, right? The consequences could have been much worse for you, and here's how you fix it. And in doing so, I think there's a cool moment where the teacher has some some leniency, and when he comes back, he says, hey, in the middle of all of this, he gets pulled away to fight a monster, and when he comes back, there's this huge to do, right? The whole school gets shut down, and that kind of thing. And when he comes back, the teacher's like, hey, with all the commotion, I don't know whose paper I graded, so maybe you can do that before you leave, and I can grade you then. And he's able to finish it and do it, but it's only because the teacher gave him a second chance, right? And so there's a little bit of empathy lesson there too, for him to learn, and all of that. So really this all started out because I wanted to teach my child some lessons without him, getting hurt or actually doing these things to the degree that I'm putting this character in, the hot water that he's in, at least.
Right. I guess I should ask, because one never knows, but this is all ages, right?
Yeah. So the language is actually
Yeah.
somewhat advanced, but it's all clean. In other words, so it's an all ages in that sense. I've had a core group of his friends and a core group of other kids that we know that have read this. Some haven't been able to read it because there's some very tough words in there, but the language is clean. In other words, there's no swearing. I think as the worst that we get is like the bad guy says something. I don't even know the word that we use, but it's not that harsh. Basically like, oh, you minions, and that kind of thing, like putting them down, but technically not a bad word. It doesn't fit into those negative words, but I think he calls them imbeciles, right? Which is borderline bad. But a lot of it is really like showing that the yelling is all being done by the bad guy, and that the communication is really done by the good guys, right? Like the hey, this is why you don't do that is being done by the good guys, whereas the bad guys just like throwing things and having these fits of rage and flying off the handle.
Right.
Yeah, great question.
No,
I don't think I make a point to say that enough.
It's good to point out because, that's some parents feel like
For sure.
that's all they need to hear, to introduce their kids to some quality kid material.
Yeah, for sure. Especially something like this that has a big range, right? I mean, monsters are cool to just about any age, and that can definitely fall into the wrong side of the spectrum there very easily.
Yeah. No, but that's.
Can I actually play the video really quick? I think this video should introduce the world a little bit better. If you don't mind, I'll.
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Edgar, and I'm the creator. Sorry, of Ameri-Kaiju comic. This story is about. Wrong video. Let me see if this one is. My name is Edgar, and I'm the writer, creator of Ameri-Kaiju, Monster Hunter in Training. This is a story about Ike and his mentors' adventures in monster hunting. I often get asked about the origins of Ameri-Kaiju. Well, to answer that question, in 2009, I split a booth with my good friend John, and one of our first gimmicks first of many, was to sculpt live in order to attract some attention to our booth. This is Yo, my first ever vinyl figure. The gimmick didn't really work the first couple of times that we tried it, but one afternoon it was like magic. We managed to pull in a few people. They were really friendly, asking questions, joking with us. It was great. We kept customizing and talking as usual. Then from behind the first row of people, we hear a voice call out from behind his little entourage. Americans can't make kaiju. Then they walked away. It took me a bit to center myself, with John's help, of course. The situation got to me. My mind was racing with comebacks and arguments to make, but it was too late. The moment had passed, or so I thought. A few days later, the moment kept replaying in my head, and, well, long story short, I came up with Ameri-Kaiju as a direct response to the guy's comment. I started sketching more monsters than usual just to prove them wrong. Then the idea evolved into using actual mythical monsters of the Americas, and the idea took off from me. I started with chupacabras, and I continued with other monsters. As you can see, it was a bit more cutesy, chibi-ish look, which is where I like to go style-wise. That's kind of a natural for me. Then, of course, life got busy, and I paid more attention to my professional aspirations. I got married. My wife and I had two beautiful boys. And now, after 2 solid decades of focusing on product development, COVID-19 came around,
And much like most of you, I found myself with a ton of time on my hands. I used this very unique opportunity to revisit old concepts. Ameri-Kaiju was obviously at the top of that list. And it was scary because I didn't know much about writing. So I studied and applied as much as I could to my own stories. Now we are 3 issues in, and a big thank you to all of you Kickstarter backers from our first campaign. The next 3 issues are written and layouts have been developed, the whole 9, because I want to keep up the pace of delivering a comic every 3 months or sooner, if at all possible. In order to do so, I need to hire artists to handle interior art, colors, pencils, especially the covers. Speaking of covers, I was so pumped. I was incredibly, incredibly inspired by the creativity behind the variant covers we printed for the first campaign, especially the homage covers. I looked at them and felt jealous. I came up with a few ideas of my own for variant homage covers, but I wanted to pay homage to the actual toys in a more direct manner, especially these little guys. Because I have such cool memories of them, I love the style then and now. So I created my own monsters in a similar style as an homage to one of my favorite toys. Coincidentally, also one of my boys' favorites. So if you love toys and you love cutesy monsters, this should be a perfect combination for you. I hope you like them, and thank you for sticking around this long. I know this has been a really long video, so thank you again. And please, please, please share, comment, hit the like button, and help me get the word out.
Yeah, so that's my intro video.
Very cool.
And
yeah, I mean, like my 2 cents of advice, I've heard this over and over. It's like, have a 2-minute video to sell your comic. And if you want to add additional videos in your, sort of Kickstarter thread, then that's fine,
Right. Yeah, I actually have a couple of different videos that we've done. I've done a few others like that I have from my first campaign.
Right.
And actually I've been really good about keeping those to, I believe it's less than 2 minutes for the most part, right? Because I mean, for me, I can go on and drone on for hours if I need to. So, that gets a little tricky for me.
Yeah, you just want to essentially pitch the book as quick as possible and show off the
Right.
artwork. I mean, it's art and story. That's what sells it, and that's all
Right.
I really want to know initially.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I need to definitely take this extra time that I have and apply some of the things that we've talked about today. So yeah, thank you so much for that, because it definitely helps to have somebody somebody else have their opinion in there, from their past experiences, because a lot of this is very new to me, and I'm more like, you draw the pretty pictures, and you kind of you keep going from there, kind of thing. That's where I like to live. Being the marketer, being the front man, is definitely not something that I feel like I'm well suited for, but it's something I have to do. So I'm out there.
Yeah,
I'm trying.
Yeah, I mean, you get a good looking product, and definitely like the characters, the stories. It sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, and I have some interior
definitely
pages
be
here too.
happy to have you on again for sure.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, I have some interior pages here to to show sort of the evolution, how how I work. You go from the layouts to pencils, the inks, adding colors, and then I overlay the letters on top of all of that digitally. And then, obviously going from script to rough layouts. There's also, you forget all these steps are involved until you actually start talking about it and or doing it, right? So I figured, for people to understand, like, it's not just me sitting down one afternoon and doodling and calling it done, right? It takes for me, for my process at least, it takes a lot of people and a lot of time, a lot of money invested to make this happen. So that's why I'm doing the Kickstarters to make these things go faster.
Yeah, and it's not often that I hear like yourself and my last guest who want to not only do quality books but do it on a schedule where it will eventually be really profitable, like, in a sense, because you'll be getting on a regular schedule like the big companies, and if you do that effectively, man, it
can be very expensive.
and if you understand if you understand the mechanics of succeeding at something like that, of doing stuff on a schedule, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I take from my past, from my experience, and the reality is, if you're not, to the point that we're making about social media, I should have applied it to my social media too. But if you're not in the public eye, on a little more constant and all, then you get forgotten, right? Like there's shows where I was in love with season 1, but season 2 didn't come for like 3 years, and by the time it came around, I was like, sorry, man, I'm hooked on this now. I'm moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So, for me, my plan has been to release these guys on a quarterly basis, and at the very least get 6 per year. That was what I initially had gone out for, and I'm still on track for that. But what I wanted to avoid was dropping issue 1 and then waiting a year, 2 years to get issue 2, because again, by then your readership has radically changed, and their interest will have changed, and all of that. And my hope is that I can carry through, and I don't know about profitable quite yet, because they're very, very, very expensive. But more than anything, just to stay in the zeitgeist, stay within that range of like, oh yeah, I heard of those guys, at the very least. So
right.
Yeah. Well, I have to run because my wife has been texting me to grab my boys, but it's been awesome talking to you, man. I really appreciate the advice. I'm going to try and apply everything.
My pleasure. And I'm gonna wrap it up. Go check out Edgar's links. They're all down below. Follow him on social media. Check out the artwork in the book, and can people pick up a copy right now of the earlier issues if they want to?
Yeah, so they can do that through my social media. At Little House is my personal account, and then I also have at Ameri-Kaiju Comics. Ameri-Kaiju Comics has a shop, and you can pick it up there, or you can go to Ameri-Kaijucomics.com and get free shipping. So I go to the website, get the free shipping, do all that good stuff. There's variant covers on the website as well that I couldn't put on the Instagram shop, but you can definitely head to the website and get a bunch of stuff. There's even the toys and all kinds of stuff are on the website, so much better place to go.
All right, well, go check it out, and thank you so much for coming on and talk about it. And
thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
And definitely when you go live, or if you want to go live on my show, by all means,
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'll take you up on that, man.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yes. So keep in touch. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been Making
Thank you.
Comics and Art, and I'll be here all week.